There really couldn't have been a more perfect song than that one for this talk today. Because when I was 16, I would play that song over and over again on the stereo in my parents' living room. And I would have ennui and angst and feel sad and long for somebody to connect to who was like a bridge to me. And I bet a lot of us have had that feeling, probably a lot of us when we were teenagers or in that time when we had to grow up. A lot of us felt like some of us had a bridge, some of us had some good foundation, and other people felt a little bit lost. And really, I really didn't get that connection for a long time until I started doing some spiritual seeking and found my connection to spirit through unity and some other things too. You know, it was in the 80s. There was a lot of self-help and spiritual workshops going on, and I found unity and A Course in Miracles and some other things all at the same time. And the main thing that happened to me that felt like I got that bridge was that I was able to let go of the old God. And I'm not making a slam on the Catholic Church, but it was, I was able to let go of what I thought was the Catholic God, you know, what was taught to me, which was a distant God, a punishing God. I'm not saying that's what the Catholic Church teaches now, but that's what I got. And mostly, I got a connection inside of me, and it was like the whole world opened up. It was pretty amazing. I'm pretty sure most of us who come here have had some kind of spiritual awakening or are seeking a spiritual awakening, and I'm still seeking more, where we actually feel like we are one with love or one with unity or one with God. And it's definitely worth it. My sister was telling me about a kidney transplant chain in the news. You may have heard of it. You may have seen the news or heard about it. Well, recently there was a kidney transplant chain that ended up in California. And so I went online to research it, and as always happens, I'm always amazed. I hadn't actually heard about this before, and I found that there were lots of kidney transplant chains. And let me read you about this. This is a pay-it-forward kidney transplant. This begins when an altruistic donor steps forward to donate a kidney to a stranger with no strings attached, thus beginning a chain. The altruistic donor's kidney is then given to a compatible transplant candidate who has a willing but incompatible donor. The incompatible donor could be a friend, acquaintance, or family member who then agrees to give a kidney to a third person with an incompatible donor, and so on. Potentially, a kidney transplant chain can go on forever, but a chain typically ends with a kidney patient who is extremely difficult to match. Traditionally, transplant recipients would have to wait an average of 5 years for a suitable deceased donor kidney in the region. Now, with paired exchange and chain transplantation, people can get a transplant within 6 months or sooner. In 2012, there was a 24, which at the time was the world's longest living donor kidney transplant chain. And it was made possible by people who are willing to pay it forward. And I love that example because I'd never heard of it before, and because I think that it's such a beautiful story that we've all heard of people who need kidneys and people who want to donate, and then actually they don't match, but that they can go on and do that. And the reason I loved that story was because I really wanted to talk today about not the traditional Palm Sunday thing, which is Jesus coming into the city on a donkey. I have talked about that before. And I love the celebration of that. We celebrate the Christ in each of us. I really wanted to talk about the foot washing. It's really only in one gospel. This is from the Gospel of John. This is what Jesus says. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example that you should do as I have done to you. It's from John chapter 13. And we can look at that in a metaphysical way, the story of, a lot of people like to think it's about cleansing. A lot of people think it's about humbling. And for me today, I wanted to explore that this story is about service and connecting. No matter who you are, no matter where you are, and how can we be of service like that? How can we be of humble, helpful, loving service? There's many, many places in the gospel, the New Testament, that tells us to be kind. This is one from Ephesians. And be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ has forgiven you. And of course, anytime we're reading an epistle, that's the message of Jesus, interpreted by an apostle, going forward. How do you be an example of loving service? Well, here is the good, wonderful news. Wherever we are, we can start right in the midst. Right in the midst. You can find an opportunity in your family, wherever you work, in the grocery store, any place you hang out, maybe your knitting club, your golf buddies, people you play silly games with, like charades. You can be an example of service as the Christ. And you don't have to wash feet. And I often I always bring up Mother Teresa. And you don't actually have to go to India and be like Mother Teresa and take care of people who are in dire need. Although that is a beautiful, loving example. It's a wonderful example. The really super good news is all you have to do is be you. Me be me, you be you. I'm serious here. You just have to be who you are, and you have to be just a little more awake than usual. Okay? Just a little more grounded, maybe. Just a little more present than usual. And maybe I'm definitely talking to myself. I can't tell you how. Do you ever do this when all of a sudden you think, what just happened? You're in the middle of a conversation. I'll tell you what I do. I know none of you do this. I actually ask a question, and then while somebody's talking to me, I drift off. I don't know what they've said. That's how we all are. It's just the nature of being human is that we kind of drift away and we're not present. And yet, oh my gosh, it's the absolute, it's as good as a kidney. It's as good as a kidney hanging out with somebody who's really there. A couple weeks ago, I had a whole bunch of doctor appointments, and I am not going to tell you the details, even if you beg me. But I saw about 5 or 6 between dentists and doctors and things like that. And one of them stood out, and I realized it was because of the quality of her presence. And everybody, and believe me, they were all kind, loving, wonderful people, and I got what I needed. You know, nobody misdiagnosed or cut off the wrong leg or anything. Everybody was good. But I really noticed the quality of the person in the room with me, and probably because I felt understood about what my concern was. But it wasn't just that she understood and said the words back. It was that quality of presence. And it didn't just change my day. I feel like it sent me off in a new direction with a new dedication to listening. And I would love to report that I have listened to everybody like that since then. I wish I could say that. But at least I am more frequently have that intention when I walk into the room, to be present and to actually be awake. That really is our spiritual work. Sometimes it's harder than that, but at any moment, this can be your spiritual work, to show up and actually be present and aware and alive and awake and listening to somebody. This is from the Course in Miracles. The gift of Christ is all I seek today. What but Christ's vision would I use today when it can offer me a day in which I see a world so like to heaven that an ancient memory returns to me? Today I can forget the world I made. Today I can go past all fear and be restored to love and holiness and peace. Today I am redeemed and born anew into a world of mercy and of care, of loving kindness and the peace of God. Today I can go past all fear. Today I can forget the world I made. Because a lot of times, most of the time when I'm not present, it's because I'm making something up in my head. Do you ever do that? I'm making up what's going on now, I'm making up what should happen next, or I'm hanging out in what happened before. And the truth is, it's just better to be present. It's better to be present. It's like Christmas, it's like Easter, it is indeed like getting a kidney. It is just, it is the most, actually, really is the most. It's the most precious gift that you ever give to anybody else. Just who you are with them. And you know what it feels like. You know you know what that is, and you know that's true. And our spiritual work along those lines is to meditate, because meditation is a really good way to be present. Do other spiritual practice, some praying, some meditating, yoga. There's many ways you can show up and learn how to be present. When Deb and Judy give us music, that's a really nice way to practice being present. You just focus on what they're doing and just keep bringing your attention back there. It's really good practice. You just keep being in the presence. They're giving a gift. They're actually paying attention and aware and awake when they're doing that. Or when Chris is singing and the band is playing, trust me, they are paying really good attention when they're singing and they're playing. And for our job is just to actually pay attention and listen and receive it. So today, I I would love to convey how grateful I feel for being in your presence, because there is something about standing up here and talking that makes me pay attention. And I am almost always pretty much aware and present. It might be kind of fun to, if you ever find me not present, be sure and tell me. But it's really a wonderful blessing. And so today, for the rest of the day, for the rest of our service, when people are giving from their heart, when Judy and Deb are going to play some music, and when the kids come in the room, and when we all stand up and sing the peace song together, just practice. We got like about 12 minutes left. Practice being present with our heart. And know that at the very end of the service, when we say namaste or thank you God for you and just greet each other, we're going to do it with our whole self. And the vibration in the room is going to go up and spread out through the world. Let's take an offering for unity. I invite you to take